Hi, my name's Sylvia Romano and I've been completing an independent study contract at the end of my degree now in Games Art and Design at Murdoch University. My independent study contract has been on the character concept development process, and I was lucky enough to be able to choose pretty much what I wanted to achieve project-wise, and it's been a good opportunity for me to really take control of my own studies, and a lot different to doing a standard unit. So I've really enjoyed the process. These tutorials will be talking about that process from the starting point, when I was coming up with ideas, all the way to the end product. So I hope you enjoy and perhaps take something away from my project. I will start with my work breakdown structure, which outlined what I wanted to achieve and how I thought I was going to do it. I also put a timeline in there to try and stick to. Didn't quite happen that way, as most things tend not to do, but I did the best I could. So I decided to, in my character concept development, focus on 3 characters. I thought that would be an achievable goal for me during the semester. Also, I wanted to give myself an opportunity to work on different body types, 3 different body types. I stuck with humanoid body types, but not human characters. So I wanted to give my characters an elemental capabilities. Wasn't quite sure in the beginning which elements I would be using, but I definitely wanted to give them elemental, not weapons, but abilities. So their fighting techniques would incorporate the element that they are. My concept was heavily influenced by my love of role-playing games. Specifically, The Legend of Zelda and Final Fantasy series are my 2 favourites. I tend to get every game that I can when they come out from those 2 series. I happened to start this process at the same time as Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was released. So that was actually quite motivating. I got a few ideas from that game and it was an absolute brilliant game. So it worked out well. So as I said, I decided to do a biographical page that might be used for a strategy guide for my fictional game. I find many people purchase strategy guides if they want to collect everything in the game, and if they get stuck, something to refer to help them get through a game. But also because of the accompanying artwork, and a lot of them being released now come with concept art and just finished pieces that may have been used in advertising or, various media releases before the game and after the game has been released. So I tend to buy the strategy guides for the artwork rather than the actual primary use of being a strategy guide. That's a secondary use for myself. So I thought creating a biographical page for a strategy guide was really interesting and something I haven't really tried before. So I thought that would be a great challenge for me. I wanted to create the characters using action poses which reflected their abilities, which, as I mentioned, would be elemental. So when the player looks, or the viewer looks at the bio page, they can at a glance, even if there's not a lot of written description about the character, they can see exactly, or at least have an idea of what the characters are able to do in game. I wanted to also place the characters on an environmental background. Now, environments are not a strength of mine. I tend to avoid doing environment pieces because they're not a strength of mine. I don't find that I'm very good at environment pieces. I haven't had a lot of practice with environment pieces, and a lot of that has been due to my own choice because I'm not confident with them. But I figure if I'm going to do this independent study contract, there's no point focusing on something I know that I can do. I need to choose to do also something that will challenge me as an artist and give me a chance to practice and acquire some new skills. So I decided that an environment piece which would be shown behind my characters in the bio page, would be a good idea. I decided to go for a speed paint, which I have never, before this I had never even attempted before. I'd watched plenty of tutorials of other artists doing speed paints, and to be honest, I was quite intimidated by them. I would think there's no way that I would ever be able to do something on the level of these people, so I'm not even going to bother trying. And that's been my attitude in the past as in regards to speed paint. But as I've progressed through this degree, I've realised that if I don't try to do things that I know I'm not good at, or I think that I can't do, then I'm really depriving myself of a skill set that other people do have. And when it comes time to putting a portfolio together, if I'm missing certain things that other people can do, and my repertoire of skills is not as large as somebody else's, then that's only going to be detrimental to me. So I figure now, at the end of my degree, is might as well start somewhere and try and do a speed paint now. And I have to start somewhere, so this is where I chose to start. So I knew I needed to watch a lot more tutorials and really study people's techniques, and then maybe give something a go. So I did do that during this process. The environment in the background is not a focus, so that was a bit relieving to me, in knowing that even if my speed paint didn't turn out that great, I would be able to cleverly disguise it by making sure it's a faded background, and the characters would be in front of it. So because it wouldn't be a focus, I wasn't that concerned about my ability to produce something really fantastic. So that was just a bit of comfort for me as I was completing the project. I wanted the environment to convey a feel of the game by my use of colour, and the use of what kinds of things I put in the environment would hopefully convey the feel of what the game would be like to the player. I decided to use a one-page bio with all three characters on the one page, just simply because I don't think 3 separate pages would have been very achievable for me. I would have then had to do 3 different environments and then construct also 3 different page compositions, and I didn't think I would have the time for that. Ideally, that would have been great, because then you could really focus on each character on each page, but just due to time constraints, I didn't think I would be able to achieve that, so I didn't try. So here I have some images from the initial research that I did when I was looking for design ideas. I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but I didn't really have any idea of the details at this point. So I just did a bit of Googling and grabbed out some of my own strategy guides that I own, and had a look at some of the images that I thought worked well, and something that I might like to use certain ideas from. So up here, this is an image from the strategy guide for The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. I liked how the characters were quite distinct, and that some of them had some really good action poses here. Like we've got Link there, so we know he uses a shield and sword. And also here I've got an image from Final Fantasy X strategy guide. They're not necessarily action poses, but they are holding their weapons, so you can still have an idea of what they do in battle. The only thing I didn't like about these is that it's primarily writing here, and I didn't want that. I wanted it to be more of an artistic image rather than an information heavy image. I really liked the stained glass window effect used here for this Legend of Zelda game. And then also there's this comic style print here, which I think the simplicity of the drawing here, and the fact that they've only used the colour for Link's costume and the Triforce, I really liked that. And it told a story, which I thought was very clever. Over here I've got another image from Final Fantasy X. This is definitely an action pose. So you've got Yuna here. It's a pretty dramatic looking image. I really like the colours, and I like the fact that the character was very crisp. The image was very crisp at the front of the image, and then in the background was a little bit more blended and faded, so it didn't take focus away from the character. Two other images from Final Fantasy 12 here, which I didn't think was a very good game, but I really liked these images from the strategy guide. Another action pose there, and a background that doesn't take away from the main image here. Same with this one. So yeah, here we've got some other images. I just really liked this one. I liked how there was different poses for the character, but I thought after a while that probably wouldn't be something that would be very achievable for me. I really just needed one image. That's all I had time for. Here again, you have got a background image, but it is very faded and it's not the main focus. So that's really the main thing I wanted to take away from this one here. But these characters are a bit too detailed. I mean, they're fantastic. They're fantastic images, but I just didn't want my characters to be this detailed. And mine are sort of less realistic as well. So we're looking at, sort of more like this style from Final Fantasy X, and you've got Sora there from Kingdom Hearts. This was more sort of the style I was looking at in the end. So yeah, that were just some of the ideas that I was looking at as a starting point. So the next thing I'll talk about is my process of working through the thumbnail images that I did at the very beginning. I really had no idea where I wanted to start. So yeah, thumbnails and silhouettes are a great way to develop ideas and build on them from there. So this was the first page that I did. I decided that I wanted my first character to be an electric elemental character, and he was going to be a male. So I started with just some really, really super quick silhouette images of what kinds of things I might like to incorporate. So I did want him to be sort of tall and thin. So this is where this idea came from, and then I sort of experimented with weapons that may have done a bit of like cogs spinning and creating electricity. Also with the idea of him being able to create balls of electricity that he could throw, perhaps. Yeah, sort of spinning electric wheels around his body. His arms being made of lightning hair, just all kinds of ideas. I think I sort of juggled with the idea of him being not humanoid at one stage there, a lizard, but I think I really did want to work with humanoid characters. I really liked how his hair resembled electricity but may not have necessarily been electricity. Yeah, so from there I went back to this. I sort of developed them further. So he became a guy with long sort of lightning style hair, which I then thought, it kind of looks a bit like dreadlocks. So then I thought, okay, well, we could make him be, his hair is dreadlocks, but it's sort of zigzaggy like electric. So I sort of went with that image. I wanted him to be thin but toned. First I thought maybe if he's sort of part machine, part lightning, that might be a cool idea. Self-charging electric currents, spinning gears, bolts on his limbs for charging attacks. And I thought maybe gears or bolts on the palms of his hands, and that's where the electricity that he throws generates from. And perhaps he changes colour. So yeah, these were just some starting points for me. The next character was the next one I worked on was the elemental earth character, which I wanted to be like an adult female. Here are my silhouettes for this one. So she sort of started with vine whipped kind of arms, and then she had a sort of vine style skirt happening, vines around her, wrapped around her limbs, her hair being the vines perhaps. I really like the idea of her having a vine for like a ponytail, but then it sort of started to feel like her hair was looking very similar to the electric character's hair, and I didn't want them to be the same, so I kind of came back to having her hair still being sort of vine-like but being wrapped up. Perhaps in gameplay it can unravel and whip around, but at this stage I liked it sort of being tied up so that she had a difference to the first character. I liked the idea of her being graceful, so I thought perhaps she could be like a dancer, like some of her moves could involve like ballet style moves. Flower dress, like a petal dress here. This one was the next one. So yeah, here she is being a dancer. Perhaps she's got petals floating around her. I wanted her to be long but curvy, slender, resembling like a tree type character. And I really like the idea of her having vines wrapped around her that she could unravel and use in battle. I did sort of look at the idea of her using flowers as like ninja stars, but I thought that might have been going a bit too far, so I didn't include that in the end. The next character I looked at was my child fire character. So I started with these silhouettes. I did have an image in mind of what I wanted this character to look like, so I didn't need as many silhouettes with this one, because I did kind of have a starting point of what I wanted her to look like. I knew I wanted her to be a girl, and I knew I wanted her hair to be like curly curls, but the curls are fire. So it was like she had this hair of fiery curls, and I liked the idea of her having a bit of a pot belly, so she had this sort of cuteness aspect to her as well, just as a bit of a contrast to the more serious adult characters. It was just a way of me to sort of get a bit of difference in there, a bit of contrast, something for the player to be able to choose something that sort of suits their personality. Yeah, a bit of choice really is what I was going for. And then that sort of developed further into this image here. So yeah, I sort of looked at maybe she could handle fireballs and throw those as her main form of attack. They all have sort of ears that are related to what their element is, so her ears look a bit sort of flame-like. These are her hair fire curls, and I sort of looked at maybe having some fire bits engulfing like parts of her limbs, but I didn't end up going that way in the end. I wanted her to be like a feisty sort of character, cute but she has a temper, and she's sort of impish in appearance. In the end, I decided to have their clothes part of the body like strategically placed markings. That in the end they don't have clothing as such, but they have markings on their body which create a bit of colour contrast. It just adds a bit of difference there. From those silhouettes, I then developed the final images of my characters, and these are the final designs. So my electric guy is like a stern. I wanted him to have a very stern face. I really wanted him to have a long pointy nose and chin, and quite detailed brow ridges as well for him. I wanted him to have a lot of hair, and in this original image I've given him this ring of electricity here, which I sort of envisioned spinning around him really fast, that he could then like take off and throw or shoot electricity from or whatever. But in the end I decided not to do that, because I felt like it was a bit too much, and it sort of took away from his body shape and where the markings are. I just felt it was too much in the end, and he didn't really need it. This was my Earth character, who didn't change actually. That she's the only thing that really changed with her from this to the final image was that she didn't have the petal grass skirt in the end. Again, I thought that sort of took away from the simplicity of what I was going for in their body shape. So everything else, she still has the vines around her and her hair is pretty much the same, but the flower petal skirt wasn't included in the end. Down here, my fire character pretty much ended up exactly as she looks there, because she is quite simple already and didn't need anything added or taken away in my opinion. So she ended up pretty much the same as that. Another thing I sort of wanted to add was that I didn't want their eyes to be human. I wanted them to have the shape of human, or sort of similar shape to human eyes, but I didn't want them to have human eyeballs as such. So when in the final image, you'll see what I've done with those. I wanted that to sort of really reflect the characters, what their personalities are like, and I kind of wanted to keep those a bit veiled as a sort of intrigue for the player to really want to have a go at giving this game a go. The next part of the process was to sort of look at what kind of composition I wanted my page to have. So the image, the actual page that would appear in the strategy guide, with the characters in it, with the environment in it, and how they would be placed. I started again with some thumbnails and some just bouncing some ideas, because at this point I really had no idea how I wanted to do it apart from those initial research images that I had chosen that I really liked. These were some of the ideas that I wrestled with. So I started with like the comic panel style. Maybe perhaps they were in an asymmetrical box shape somehow. So here we looked at the split page. So this was when I was looking at maybe doing one character per page. So we had an environment here and the character sort of overlapping half of the environment and a border with some writing maybe down here. But then I realised I'd need 3 backgrounds, so it probably wasn't a very achievable thing to be looking at. Paper cutout effect, I have used this before when I did a project a few years back now, so I really like the effect of it, but I wasn't quite sure if it would work here, but I put it in as an idea anyway. Asymmetrical effect, maybe using the characters, so the characters are aware of their confines in the image and maybe positioning them so that they are kind of sort of standing in these boxes on top of each other. I thought that might have been an interesting idea. Maybe using part of the environment as a way to separate the characters in the image. So I've used like a tree as an example there. Focus on the characters in the middle of the, like maybe using a mountain or something and having them sitting on a mountain and then the rest of the background in the image. So I looked at perhaps doing something like that. Then there was this one here. One, again, I've looked at the same background, but still 3 different images. So maybe looking at being able to do the 3 images, but only one background. But then I thought that might have been a bit boring. The panel pictures, so having like a black background and then having like window effect with the background showing through the windows and the characters overlapping in the foreground with some like maybe some writing, the name of them at the top and then the writing at the bottom of the bio. And then I looked at the action poses, so one background image used but focused on a different area. So I'd only have to do one background, but each character would only have one focus of that background as their personal image. But yeah, this was sort of going away from my original idea of having the background as one main image, and then with using a window you're kind of restricting yourself a little bit. So this was another one, same idea, split into 3 different backgrounds, the windows, the solid black, another 3 split one there, and then maybe splitting the image using parts of each character's elements. So this one, the flame child would be inside a flame. There's an electric bolt there, some leaves here. Yeah. So I think the one in the end that I sort of went with was this one here, not with the triangles, but with the fact that the background would be solid black and then there would be these 3 windows that the character would be sort of half in front of, sort of overlapping. So it would have a kind of stained glass window effect where the image would be seen through, the background image would be seen through the window. So that was actually what I chose. It's not what I ended up with in the end. And I'll talk about that when I come to that, when I made that decision. But at this point in time, this is what I chose. I then had to work on the final composition using that idea.